Hey guys, it's Jen. Welcome back to my channel. So today I'm filming in a different location. I'm actually downstairs where I used to film a long time ago, and that's because I need to be able to keep an eye on my son while I'm filming. He's right here next to me, so if you hear any noise, I apologize for that. So anyway, today's video is going to be on these Rimmel palettes. I got so many requests to do a top 10 and swatch them all, so that's what I'm going to do today. I'm going to rank them actually from my least favorite all the way to my #1 top favorite palette. And I have to say, I am so impressed by these palettes in general, just because I feel like there's some of the best at the drugstore that are under $10. They're around $8 a piece. Even sometimes you can find them on sale. Right now in particular, Walgreens has them on sale for $5 a piece. So you can get them for basically a steal. And I think for the price, they are amazing. And a few of them can definitely compete with some more higher end formulas as well. The rest of them I feel like are a little bit hit and miss. I would say the majority of the shades are really good and really easy to work with. But each palette does have its challenges with just a couple of the shades, but it's nothing that's unworkable in my opinion. I can always work with them a little bit, whether I have to build them up or maybe use some of the shimmer shades wet. It's not really a big deal, but I would say that overall they are super soft, super pigmented, very easy to work with, and I think you really can't find anything at the drugstore at this price point that beats it. Now, of course, I think there's amazing palettes at the drugstore, like from Milani. They're one of my favorites. There's also more affordable brands like ColourPop and BH Cosmetics that you can find in Ulta now, so I think those palettes are amazing as well. But for $8, you really can't go wrong with these, especially because they just keep coming out with more and more color schemes that are so much fun. And when you consider the competition in this price point, you really only have like the Maybelline City Minis and the CoverGirl True Nakeds, which are pretty good formulas, but I feel like they don't have as much color variety and fun shades that these do. So why don't we go ahead now and start the countdown. So coming in at number 10 is the new Rainbow Edition. This one actually just came out very recently. I found this at Walmart, and I have to say, out of all the palettes, this is the only one that I would say has multiple shades in here that just do not work for me. It's a really pretty colorful palette with a bunch of neon shades, but they all just kind of fell flat for me when I was trying to apply them to my eyes. They were just really, really sheer. They don't have the pigmentation that the other palettes in this collection have, and I found that there were very few shades that actually worked well. Not to mention that I just really don't reach for colors like this on an everyday basis, so that's why this one is at the bottom of my list. And then coming in at number 9, we have the Color Edition. Now, this one, actually, the formula on it is really, really good. It's super, super pigmented, which you'll see in the swatches here. I think it's a gorgeous palette overall. I think the colors are really beautiful. It's just something that I'm not likely to reach for on an everyday basis, which is why this is number 9. The majority of this palette is just really deep, dark shades, and as somebody that has fair skin, I don't reach for shades that are this dark that often. I tend to stick to mid-tones and lighter colors for my eyes, and I really only use deep colors like this for either like an outer corner accent or a liner shade. So I really don't reach for this palette too much just because of how overall dark it is. It also doesn't have a lot of matte shades in it. You have this deep purple here and this bright blue as a matte. You also have this green one that's a matte, and then this really, really deep purple down here. So there's not a nice mid-tone transition shade in here either. So overall, that's why I really don't reach for this palette very much. Then coming in at number 8 is the Wow Edition. Now, this one is also one of the brand new ones that just came out recently. And the reason that I don't reach for this one is because of a lack of matte shades in here. I think the formula on this one is really, really good as well, similar to the color one. I think that the shades are really pigmented, really rich and buttery. The only thing is there are 2 matte shades in this palette. They're way down here at the end, really deep dark shades, and they do have some glitter to them, so they're not pure mattes either. They're just a matte base with some glitter thrown in. So while it is possible to use an entire palette of shimmers on your eyes, I'm not saying it's not, I always feel like I need to use a matte transition shade in my crease, which is why I really don't reach for this one that often. But I do really love the color scheme of this. I think it's, even though it's colorful, it's a little bit more wearable than the Color Edition, at least for me, because it has some really pretty mid-tone shades in here as well as some deeper shades, and then you have your lighter ones down here. Not to mention that they're not overly bright as well. I feel like it's a little bit more muted colorful palette, but sadly it doesn't have enough mattes in here for me. And then coming in at number 7 is the Blush Edition. This one is a really beautiful neutral palette, and I find that these colors would be definitely ones that I would wear on an everyday basis. The problem is, again, a lack of matte shades. You have one matte shade right here, and it's too light to use as a transition or a crease color. It's more of a like highlight shade. And then there are two kind of semi-matte, almost like satiny shades down here at the end, which you could use, I guess, but they're a little bit too dark, at least for my skin tone to use. So even though this is a really pretty wearable palette for me, I don't reach for it all that often because of the lack of matte shades. But I do want to mention that this one is very similar to the Naked 3 palette from Urban Decay. It's very, very similar. It's not an exact dupe, but I feel like they were kind of going for the same vibe, and you will see throughout this video that they have definitely been duping other Urban Decay palettes as well. So just something to keep in mind if you like the Naked 3. But at the same time too, I want to point out that the Naked 3 does have some really amazing matte transition shades, which is why they're not exactly similar. You have this one right here, and then you have this sort of dusty rosy color right here. So it does have a couple of mattes in here that I use all the time when I use this palette, while the blush edition doesn't. So just something to keep in mind with that as well. And then coming in at number 6 is the Crimson edition. Now this one, formula wise, is one of the best in the entire collection. I hardly have any complaints about the formula with this. I think every shade works pretty well for me. The reason that it's not higher up on my list though is just because I don't use reds and pinks that often on my eyes. They're just really not my colors. I just feel like these kind of colors make me look like I'm sick or there's something wrong with my eyes. But I know a lot of people really love this one. It's actually incredibly similar to the Naked Cherry palette, so I'll show you some comparison swatches so you can see it's really almost an exact dupe. So if you liked the Naked Cherry palette but didn't necessarily want to spend the money on it, you like these types of reds and pinks, I think you'll really enjoy this one because the formula is fantastic. I would say it's almost as good as the Urban Decay one. And then coming in at number 5 is the Electric Violet edition, and I love purple eyeshadows, so I find myself reaching for this one pretty often. It also has some nice matte transition shades in here, as well as some deeper mattes to work with on the outer corner, so I think it has a nice mix of matte and shimmer colors. The formula on this one is a little bit more hit and miss than some of the other palettes for sure, but I don't find any of the shades to be unworkable. Sometimes I just have to wet the shimmers a little bit to help make them pop, but I think the mattes are really, really good, really blendable, and very pigmented. So overall, I really enjoy this one and reach for it pretty often. And then coming in at number 4 is the Thunderstorm palette, and this one surprised me because when I first got it and swatched it, I felt like the formula wasn't going to be that good. But this is one of those cases where I feel like the more you use it and you get down into the shadows, the better they perform. I also like the variety in this palette too. You have some silver and gray shades down here, then you have blue and purple, you have the yellow, 2 green shades, and then this dusty lavender matte, which I use as a transition for most of the looks that I get out of this palette, and I think it works really well with just about any color in here. I used it today. Actually, I'm wearing it on my eyes. I used this one in my crease, and then I used this green one right here on the outer and inner corners, and then in the center of my lid, I put this silver shade, and this silver shade, by the way, is absolutely stunning. It's like so incredibly pigmented in one swipe. It's just beautiful. So overall, I've really, really been enjoying this one. It's also a dupe for the Kylie Storm palette, I think it's called. Storm or Stormy, I'm not sure which. I know her daughter's name is Stormy, but I can't remember the name of the palette, but I'll put it up here on the screen so that you can see. It's very, very similar shade-wise. I don't own that one, so I couldn't do a comparison. But overall, I just think this is a really fun palette. I love sort of the grungy vibe that it has. It's really pretty. And then coming in at number 3 is the Nude edition. This is actually the first one I think I purchased from the line because they came out with, I think, this and the blush one first. And I love this one because it's actually a really close dupe for the original Naked palette, which is now discontinued. And to be honest, this one that I have is so old. I think it's one of the originals. I've had it for years, so I don't like to use this one on my eyes, but I feel like I can get very, very similar looks out of this one. Now, is the formula as good? No, but I can certainly build the shadows up a little bit and wet the shimmers if I have to get kind of the same intensity I would get out of the Urban Decay. And I can really create very, very similar looks out of it. So I'll show you some swatches of the two together and you can see how really close they are. I also love how this one has a really good mix of mattes and shimmers in here as well. There's some good transition colors. And just like the others, I also find that the more I use this and the more I really dig down into those shadows, the better they are and the better they perform. So even though the formula isn't as amazing on this one as it is on some of the others, I feel like, again, it's totally workable if I want it to be, and it's so close to a classic palette and something that I could easily reach for every single day. So that's why it's number 3 on my list. All right, so number 2 might surprise you guys, and that is the Jewel Rocks palette. When I first saw this one, it didn't immediately jump out at me. I purchased it mainly because I had been buying all the others, and I figured it's inexpensive, I might as well just try it out. But I have to say, this is one of my favorites because as you'll see in the swatches, This is beautiful. It looks so much better swatched than it does looking at it in the pan, and it is a colorful palette, but I feel like it just has such unique shades for the drugstore. You don't see colors like this, like the mustardy yellows down here, these greens, the turquoise blue. I mean, there's just something about this palette. And if you guys watch Lip Gloss Leslie, she had done a video on these palettes a couple months back, and I remember her saying that this palette looked Santa Fe inspired, and I totally agree with that. It just kind of gives me like a Southwest vibe. It's really gorgeous, and one of the biggest surprises I think from this line. I think it's absolutely stunning. And by the way, if you're not subscribed to Lip Gloss Leslie, I'll put her channel down in the description box below. I think she has such an awesome channel. She does a lot of drugstore just like I do, so I think you'll really enjoy her. Definitely go check her out. And then number one should come as no surprise to anybody. It's the Spice Edition. I feel like this is everybody's favorite in the collection, but for good reason. The formula is amazing. There's something about this one that is just a step up from all the other palettes. Every single shade in here is absolutely beautiful. It's kind of very like Naked Heat inspired. I don't have the Naked Heat, so I couldn't compare the two. It's just such a beautiful warm tone palette, and I reach for these colors a lot because they really make my blue eyes pop, and I used to be really afraid of shades like this, but the more I wear them, the more I realize just how flattering they are with my coloring, with my eye color. I just love these shades, and I think the formula is fantastic on this one. All right, guys, so that does it for my top 10 Rimmel palettes. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, don't forget to hit the thumbs up button. Also, let me know down in the comments below what your favorite of all these palettes is. I would love to hear from you guys. Thank you all so much for watching. Please don't forget to hit the subscribe button, and I'll see you in my next video. Bye.